I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. I want to thank all of our witnesses here today. I want to particularly thank Mr. Wicker, who has been an informed, intelligent, and reliable voice on these issues in North Carolina for a long time. And I have known him beyond this capacity and this job, but even when I was a staffer here on Capitol Hill. And so welcome. I want to turn specifically to North Carolina. Mr. Wicker, you were talking about the 500,000 worker cap on this bill and how it really should be uncapped. I want to talk about specifically what's happening in North Carolina now. How many guest workers are we using in North Carolina at the moment?
NCGA is not the only user of guest workers in North Carolina. This year it'll be 10,000, maybe out of a national total of 70, possibly.
Well, those 10,000 workers, what percentage does that represent of the total amount of workers that we need in North Carolina to handle these agricultural jobs?
I think that represents in the range of 10 to 15%.
Wow. And the folks who are making up the difference, the workers who are making up the difference, where are they coming from? What are they composed of?
I think that group is largely composed of undocumented workers. I mean, everybody is in agreement across the board that the overwhelming majority, somewhere between 50 and 70% of migrant seasonal agricultural workers are undocumented workers.
So if the program's capped at 500,000, we in North Carolina would need, you're saying 100,000 of those would have to come to North Carolina?
I think that's correct.
And the rest
yes.
of the states would just have to divvy up what's left, right?
Yes.
Okay. A few other questions for you, Mr. Wicker. The concept of at-will temporary guest workers enjoys broad support. What would be some of the advantages of hiring at-will guest workers?
I think at-will, the concept here is largely born out of West Coast agriculture, and so the at-will provisions contemplate having a workforce that can move more freely from short-term agricultural job to short-term agricultural job. In North Carolina, we have an extremely diverse ag portfolio, and so we've been able to string a lot of different short-term jobs together, like tobacco, cucumber, sweet potatoes. So our growers overwhelmingly prefer the contract provisions because the margins are so tight on the farm. We want to know if we're going to the bank to borrow $1 million in operating money and push our equity into the center of the table and plant these crops, that we want to know that we've got workers who want to stay until the end of the harvest season.
And you bring up a valid point in that you might bring in a guest worker to work on tobacco crop, but then that merges over into a sweet potato crop, and then before too long they've been here for a period of time that takes them out of the classification of being a seasonal worker because they're working multiple crops. What are some of the complications there?
Well, the current program's capped at in statute at a year, but in reg 10 months. Our growers have figured out a way to live inside the parameters of this program. So the longest workers that we have in North Carolina are 10 months. But agriculture's changing, it's consolidating. We're moving to year-round production, especially in the Sun Belt states. And so we're going to have to move to a longer-term visa in the future.
Are there any problems, I think under Obamacare, seasonal workers are exempted from being covered by Obamacare, correct?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me a technical question about Obamacare, but yes, and as I understand, the two tests that you have to complete to decide if you have coverage, you have to have more than 50 permanent employees. So, when you get into that longer visa,
they may very well be covered by it.
Very, very well could be.
That would add a significant cost to our farmers per worker.
That's absolutely true.
Well, I see my time is expiring. I'm going to confer with my distinguished ranking member.